So I started my own business about 3 years ago, and up until that point, I had always worked for other people. And the issue was that I really wanted to start my own business. Like, this was always a dream that I had before. I had done pioneering work, so I was setting up an agency in Australia. I was working in the Silicon Valley where I set up a mobile tech business, but it was always within the safety bubble of a larger company. And so I had all these beautiful commodities or things that made my life really easy, like a regular salary, social security, and a regular holiday. It was, I think, more or less late 2014 when I had the opportunity to start my own business with a few more people. And first I got really excited because I thought, wow, this is so cool, now I finally can start it. After a few weeks though, I thought, Jesus, that's going to be hard. And so I developed some anxiety, got really scared, and I thought, oh my God, how am I going to do this? And this anxiety very quickly turned into paranoia. And I don't know whether you guys know this, but the limbic part of your brain basically starts freaking out. And you have all sorts of images about what might happen. And some of it is completely unrealistic, of course, but in that moment, in that state, you're just struggling. So I thought, Markus, stop this. That doesn't make any sense. And so what I did was, I took my dog. This is the Belgian Shepherd on the left-hand side. He's called Linus. Took him out in the fields, and I started calculating some numbers, crunching some numbers. And I thought, well, how much money have I actually saved up? And how much money do I need as an absolute bare minimum in order to survive? And then how long is that going to take me through before I have to make more money? And as I was running through those numbers, I thought, well, actually, it's maybe around 18 months. And then I thought, this is not so bad. And immediately, my nervous system started to relax. So I came back home. It was a simple exercise, but I came back home, wrote down the numbers, double-checked them, triple-checked them, and then I thought, this is cool, I can do this. And next day, I quit my job. If I thought this was easy from now on, I was deadly wrong. Because that's when it really started. And I always call this the bipolarity of a startup. The ups and downs that you go through as an entrepreneur are phenomenal. And I had no idea before I started this. Of course, you heard it and you've read some stuff about it, but actually going through it yourself and having a constant existential crisis was really hard. And so you're going through these ups and downs. The ups are really up, the lows are really low, and it just never stops. And the funny thing is, even within one day, you might win a new client and you think you might make lots of money, and in the afternoon something happens and you think the whole thing is going to fall apart. So it was difficult. So I thought, what can I actually do in order to survive this emotionally? How can I survive this emotional roller coaster? And it was quite interesting because we are running innovation festivals, and so one of the ladies who was one of my speakers, her name is Katja Kempen. She's Russian, but she lives in Munich. And she also won the gold medal in synchronized swimming. And so I asked her, how did you do it? It must have been so hard. And so in her talk, she spoke about how she was actually not the most talented person at all. There were many more girls who were much better than her. But it was interesting because a lot of them just, for whatever reason, stopped doing it. Maybe they had a boyfriend, so got distracted, they moved away, or there was trouble with school, whatever the reasons were, they stopped doing this training. And so she said, I basically was the last woman standing, and I had the resilience and the discipline to push through. And this is what got me to this term grit. So this is something that's in Germany not so well known. I don't even think there's a direct translation for it, but it's kind of a combination of real passion and perseverance. So you need that purpose to push through, but you also need that daily discipline to really do it. And then I found a book and also a TED Talk from this lady, Angela Lee Duckworth, who is a professor for psychology in the US. And she always says, grit is living life like it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I think this is so fundamentally important. So how do you develop this? And I really started to become interested in this because I was struggling so much with the day-to-day business and how do you keep it running. And you have all these cash flow things that you need to manage. So I sort of put it into a few building blocks that I think are important in order to develop it. The first thing that for me is fundamentally important is purpose. And purpose before profit is not some esoteric bullshit. It's more about, I know fully that profit and cash flow is extremely important. As a startup, believe me, I do know that. But the thing is, what drives you to the bottom of your soul? And I think this is not money usually, or for me at least, it never was, but it's doing things that I love doing. And there's a few people who I want to mention, of course, Richard Branson, one of the greatest entrepreneurs of all time. He said once, when everybody says this can't be done, it's way too difficult, it's too challenging, that's when you've got my interest. That's when I really want to jump into this. So we need this sort of entrepreneurial purpose and spirit in order to keep going. And the second one I want to talk about is reality check. So in the beginning, in the introduction, I already talked about how important it is to check your own emotional state. And this is equally important if you see, wow, I have cash flow problems. And I think it was late 2015 when we were really struggling. A good friend of mine, actually, he also is an entrepreneur. And for whatever reason, he's got his own business. For whatever reason, when things became really difficult, he was in denial. He just didn't want to deal with it. And he sort of thought somehow he would get out of this. So it's really important to have that reality check when things are not going well, so you can see where you stand, because otherwise you can't take action. They talk about the Walking Dead of the Silicon Valley. These are companies or startups who sort of are just making it, but they never make enough money, and they continue like this for years and years. It's also important when you do this reality check really to see whether your business is going to work like it is, or maybe you might have to pivot and do something else or something different. The next building block for me, maybe even one of the most important ones, is to find somebody who truly and empathetically understands you. I was always lucky because one guy who was in the startup space that I used to be in, he has launched multiple businesses. And so whenever I was really down, slightly depressed, and I thought this is not going to go anywhere, he was there and really understood me. And it's important maybe that it's not just your partner or a friend, but it should be somebody who's really done it themselves. So they've gone through the same experience. The next point is bring the elephants on the table before they become elephants. As a starter or as an entrepreneur, it's already so hard, and you have so little time. Last thing you need is company politics. So it's fundamentally important that with your team, with your co-founders, you bring emotional conflict up on the table, and maybe you even establish a regular routine within the meetings to really make sure that that's been addressed. Because I've seen it over and over again. In corporates, it's much worse, where you just can see people get upset and then they don't talk to each other. It grows bigger and bigger, and before you know it, it's a big elephant, and you can't work productively in this sort of environment. So that's a learning at least I had, which I found really helpful. And we had meditation. We heard about it before. Hurry up and meditate, I always say. For me, it's one of the most important things to prepare myself for the day. I've decided to do a daily routine. It's not just meditation, it's a combination of meditation. I also do some journaling, do a little bit of physical exercise. But just from 6 to 7 in the morning to do this just sets me up, and I feel like, wow, I can deal with this. And so this is really, I'm 2.5 minutes early, so I haven't got much more to say, but I'm happy. Maybe I talk too fast or not.